When you think of Germany, chances are you picture tall beer mugs clinking at Oktoberfest, or maybe sausages grilling on a chilly Christmas market evening. But here's the twist. Germany's culture isn't one unified story. It's a collection of different beliefs, holidays, and food traditions that can completely change from one town to the next. In fact, you could cross a single street in Germany and suddenly be standing in a place with different public holidays, different dominant religions, and even completely different dishes on the table. And that's the part most people outside Germany don't realize. This isn't just a country of beer and bratwurst, it's a country where centuries of history, wars, migrations, and reforms created a patchwork of identities. That patchwork is what makes Germany one of the most fascinating cultural studies in the modern world. Before we dive in, let me ask you something. Have you ever celebrated a holiday that most people around you didn't even recognize? Drop a comment below and tell me which one. It'll be interesting to see how traditions connect across cultures. But back to Germany, let's start at the root of it all, religion. Germany's story of religion begins with one of the most disruptive events in European history, the Protestant Reformation. Before Martin Luther nailed his famous theses to the church door in 1517, the country was overwhelmingly Catholic. But the moment Luther's ideas began to spread, everything changed. Suddenly, the north and central regions of Germany leaned heavily toward Protestantism, while the south held tight to its Catholic traditions. This divide wasn't just about faith. It shaped politics, wars, and even daily life for centuries. To this day, you can still sense that split. Walk through Bavaria in the south, and you'll see Catholic churches standing tall in nearly every town square. Travel north to Hamburg, and Protestant churches dominate the skyline instead. But religion in Germany didn't stop changing there. The 20th century brought another massive shift, World War II and the Holocaust. Before Adolf Hitler's rise, around 560,000 Jewish people lived in Germany. After the atrocities of the Holocaust, that number dropped to a fraction. Today, Germany has roughly 70,000 Jewish residents, a small but resilient community rebuilding its presence. Fast forward to the Cold War, and religion faced yet another transformation. East Germany under communist control promoted state atheism, while West Germany preserved its religious traditions. When the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, these two very different perspectives on faith suddenly collided. And that's not all. Germany today has a new religious player, Islam. Millions of Muslim immigrants, particularly from Turkey, brought their faith with them, shaping everything from community centers to local cuisine. This has sparked plenty of debate, with politicians, media, and everyday citizens clashing over how Islam fits into the German identity. So if you're wondering what religion defines Germany, the answer is, there isn't one. It's a spectrum shaped by centuries of change, conflict, and resilience. But religion doesn't exist in isolation. It spills into something every person loves to talk about, days off from work. And in Germany, holidays are anything but simple. Here's something wild. Germany doesn't have one single national holiday calendar. Instead, each of its 16 federal states, called Bundesländer, decides which holidays are officially recognized. That means a person in Munich could have the day off while someone in Berlin is stuck at work on the exact same date. For example, Reformation Day, October 31st, is a public holiday in some Protestant majority states, but in mostly Catholic areas, it's business as usual. Meanwhile, All Saints' Day on November 1st is celebrated in Catholic regions, but not in Protestant ones. This religious split that began hundreds of years ago still dictates who gets a break from work today. And of course, we can't forget Germany's unofficial global ambassador, Oktoberfest. What started in 1810 as a wedding celebration for Bavarian royalty is now the world's largest beer festival, attracting millions every year. But here's the kicker. Most Germans don't even go. Oktoberfest is heavily centered in Munich, and many Germans outside Bavaria don't see it as their tradition at all. Beyond the big names, Germany is packed with local festivals that outsiders rarely hear about. Carnival, also called Fasching, takes over cities like Cologne and Dusseldorf with parades, costumes, and chaos right before Lent begins. In smaller towns, harvest festivals celebrate wine, beer, and regional foods. And then there are the famous Christmas markets, where the smell of roasted nuts and mulled wine fills the air, transforming city squares into glowing wonderlands. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Holidays in Germany often come with heated debates. Some political voices argue there are too many, costing the economy millions in lost productivity. Others push back, saying traditions are the glue holding communities together. And whispers of reform are never far away. Rumors that certain religious holidays might one day be replaced with more neutral celebrations spark controversy every few years. But what's a holiday without food? And in Germany, food isn't just about taste. It's about identity, history, and sometimes even conflict. Germany in the 21st century is a country that looks very different from the one Martin Luther shook up in the 1500s. On paper, Christianity is still the largest faith group. About half the population identifies as either Protestant or Catholic. But here's the surprising twist. Almost 40% of Germans today claim no religious affiliation at all. That's one of the highest secular rates in Europe, and it's rising every year. Especially in cities like Berlin, religion feels more like a historical backdrop than a daily reality. Young Germans often see themselves as spiritual but not religious, or simply disconnected from faith altogether. And yet religion keeps sparking heated conversations. One major flashpoint is the Kirchensteuer, or church tax. In Germany, if you're officially registered as Catholic or Protestant, the state collects a tax, about 8-9% of your income tax, on behalf of your church. Some Germans leave the church officially, not because they lost faith, but because they don't want to pay the tax. Others defend it, saying it keeps churches financially strong, allowing them to run schools, hospitals, and charities. But the loudest debates often center around Islam. With around 5 million Muslims now living in Germany, mostly descendants of Turkish immigrants who arrived as guest workers in the 1960s, mosques and Islamic cultural centers have become part of the German landscape. Yet every new mosque construction project tends to spark protests, petitions, or heated town hall meetings. Some political parties frame Islam as foreign to German culture, while others push for integration and acceptance. Then there's the Jewish community. After the horrors of the Holocaust, many thought Jewish life in Germany might disappear forever. But in recent decades, thousands of Jews, especially from Eastern Europe, have returned, rebuilding synagogues and cultural centers. Still, this revival comes with shadows. Anti-Semitic incidents are reported every year, reminding the community that history is never too far behind. So here's the question. If a country can be divided between believers, non-believers, Christians, Muslims, Jews, and countless smaller groups, what exactly holds it together? The answer is often found in shared traditions, the kind that everyone, regardless of faith, can rally around. And in Germany, that means holidays. But not just the global ones. Let's uncover the festivals that shape German life far beyond the stereotypes. If you're only thinking about Oktoberfest when it comes to German holidays, you're missing about 95% of the story. Yes, Oktoberfest is iconic, but it's also just one festival tied to a single region, Bavaria. And here's the kicker. Outside Munich, many Germans don't care about it at all. Some even roll their eyes at the tourist circus it has become. Germany's true calendar is packed with events, both religious and secular, many of which outsiders never hear about. Take Carnival, for example. Known as the fifth season, it explodes across the Rhineland in February with parades, satirical floats, and costumed chaos before Lent begins. In Cologne, the streets flood with people in wild costumes and the city practically shuts down for a week. But go east to Berlin or Dresden and you'll barely notice it's happening. Then there are the Christmas markets. These glowing winter wonderlands are so much more than shopping stalls. They're a centuries-old tradition with mulled wine, roasted chestnuts, and handcrafted gifts, creating a festive atmosphere that even the most secular Germans adore. Cities compete for who has the best market. Dresden's Striezelmarkt claims to be the oldest, while Nuremberg's Christkindlesmarkt is one of the most famous worldwide. And here's a festival that shocks outsiders, Walpurgisnacht. On April 30th, people in northern Germany light bonfires, wear witch costumes, and celebrate the night before May Day. Its roots go back to pagan traditions, blending with Christian legends, a perfect example of how Germany's religious and cultural layers overlap. But Germany's holiday calendar isn't just tradition, it's also controversy. Some holidays are religious, which means not all Germans agree they should be public. Reformation Day, All Saints' Day, Corpus Christi, each is celebrated in some states but ignored in others. The result? A constant debate about fairness. Why should someone in Bavaria get a public holiday while someone in Hamburg has to work the same day? It doesn't stop there. Every few years, politicians float the idea of replacing certain religious holidays with more neutral cultural days. Some argue this would better reflect Germany's growing diversity, while others see it as an attack on heritage. Nothing major has changed yet, but the debate is alive, and it raises the bigger question, in a secularizing nation, which traditions survive? But if there's one thing Germans can all agree on, it's that holidays and festivals aren't complete without food. And that's where things get even more fascinating. If religion divides Germany and holidays bring debate, Food is where everything comes together, yet still sparks plenty of arguments. The stereotype of German food is simple: sausages, beer, and pretzels. But the reality is far richer. Germany is home to over 300 varieties of bread and more than 1,500 types of sausage. Each region fiercely defends its specialties. Bavaria is proud of its white sausages eaten with sweet mustard and a soft pretzel. In the north, fish dishes dominate thanks to the North Sea and Baltic. The Rhineland is famous for sauerbraten, a marinated roast, while Swabia boasts delicate egg noodles called spätzle. But here's where the cultural clash comes in. Germany's food has been transformed by immigration. Walk through Berlin, and you're more likely to see a doner kebab shop than a sausage stand. In fact, the doner kebab, brought by Turkish immigrants, is now one of the most popular street foods in the country. Some even call it Germany's true national dish. And this shift isn't without controversy. Traditionalists argue that authentic German cuisine is disappearing, replaced by global flavors. Others push back, saying food has always evolved, and immigrant dishes are now just as German as schnitzel. Then there's the rising trend of vegetarian and vegan diets. Younger Germans are leading the way in plant-based eating, with entire festivals dedicated to meat-free food. This directly challenges Germany's sausage-heavy image, sparking debates at family dinner tables about what belongs on a proper German plate. Even drinks can stir arguments. Beer purity laws, dating back to 1516, once restricted what could legally be called beer in Germany. Today, craft breweries are pushing the limits, experimenting with flavors that old-school brewers call an insult to tradition. So yes, food is delicious. But in Germany, it's also political, generational, and deeply tied to identity. But here's the thing, you can't really separate food from religion or holidays. In Germany, the three are woven tightly together, creating traditions that are about much more than taste. And that's where things get especially interesting. In Germany, food isn't just eaten, it's celebrated. And nowhere is that more obvious than when religion and holidays collide. Take Christmas, for example. Even in Germany's most secular households, the traditions run deep. Families bake Lebkuchen, gingerbread, and Stollen, a sweet fruit bread dusted with powdered sugar. Christmas Eve dinners often feature carp or goose, dishes that are centuries old. And then there's the Advent season, when every Sunday leading up to Christmas, a candle is lit on the Advent wreath while families gather for cakes, cookies, and mulled wine. Then comes Easter, another holiday where religion and food blend seamlessly. Eggs, of course, are everywhere, painted, hidden, and eaten. But in many regions, lamb dishes dominate Easter tables, symbolizing rebirth and spring. In the Southwest, there's a special Easter bread called Osterzopf, a braided loaf often topped with almonds. But it's not just Christianity shaping German food traditions. With Germany's growing Muslim community, Ramadan has become part of the cultural calendar. As the sun sets, families and friends gather to break their fast, often with dishes that fuse German and Turkish traditions. You'll find tables where lentil soup sits next to fresh pretzels and where baklava follows apple strudel. Even secular holidays have food rituals. On New Year's Eve, Berliners eat jelly-filled donuts called Berliner Pfannkuchen. On Carnival, bakeries overflow with fried pastries called Krapfen. And during harvest festivals, wine and beer flow freely while roasted meats fill the air with their aroma. What makes this all so fascinating is how Germany's identity shows up on the plate. Religious traditions, immigrant influences, local pride, they all merge in the foods Germans eat when they celebrate. So the next time someone tells you German cuisine is just sausages and beer, you'll know there's a much richer, layered story hiding in every holiday. But here's the bigger question: if traditions have changed this much already, what's next? Germany is a country that never really stops debating its identity. Religion, holidays, and food aren't just cultural markers, they're battlegrounds for the future. Let's start with religion. Trends show that secularization is accelerating. Fewer and fewer young people are signing up for church membership, meaning fewer are paying the church tax. Rumors have swirled for years that the Kirchensteuer system might face reform or even collapse if membership numbers fall too low. Some predict churches will close in droves, while others believe they'll adapt by modernizing their services and opening doors to more community-oriented roles. Then there's the holiday calendar. Every few years, whispers emerge about trimming Germany's long list of religious holidays. Some politicians argue for a more inclusive set of public days, ones that represent cultural diversity instead of just Catholic or Protestant traditions. Imagine if Reformation Day was swapped for a National Unity Day, or if Ramadan gained more formal recognition in school systems. It hasn't happened yet, but the debate keeps resurfacing. Food, too, is changing fast. Germany is on the front lines of the vegan and plant-based movement, with entire supermarket chains offering more meat alternatives than ever. Traditionalists worry this could threaten the country's iconic sausage culture, while innovators see it as the natural next step for a country that values sustainability. Even beer, Germany's sacred drink, is under transformation. Craft brewers are testing flavors like chili, fruit, and chocolate, breaking away from the purity laws that defined German beer for centuries. Purists call it blasphemy, young drinkers call it creativity, and then there's immigration. With new waves of migrants from Syria, Afghanistan, and beyond, German cuisine and holiday practices are expanding again. In some neighborhoods, you'll now see Christmas markets where falafel stands sit right next to bratwurst grills. It's a cultural mashup that sparks one big question. At what point does the definition of German stretch so wide it stops meaning what it used to? For now, Germany walks a tightrope between protecting tradition and embracing change, and that tension is exactly what keeps its culture so fascinating. So, what have we uncovered? Germany isn't one story. It's 1,000 overlapping stories. It's the Protestant North and the Catholic South. It's Oktoberfest crowds and quiet Christmas markets. It's sausages sizzling in Bavaria and doner kebabs on every Berlin street corner. It's Christmas goose, Ramadan feasts, Easter breads, and New Year's donuts. What makes Germany so unique isn't that it has one clear identity, it's that it doesn't. Its religion, holidays, festivals, and food are constantly shifting, shaped by history, politics, and people from every background. It's messy, it's diverse, and it's alive. And maybe that's the lesson here. Culture isn't about being frozen in time. It's about growing, blending, and finding meaning in traditions, whether they're 500 years old or just arriving with the latest generation. So let me throw this back to you. Which part of Germany's culture surprised you the most? Its divided religious map, its strange holiday debates, or the idea that doner kebabs might be Germany's true national dish? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to see what resonates with you, and if you've made it this far, here's your little Easter egg. Tell me in the comments what food you think best represents your own culture. I bet the answers will be just as diverse as Germany itself. If you enjoyed this breakdown of German traditions, hit the like button, share this with a friend who loves history and travel, and make sure you subscribe for more deep dives into cultures around the world. Because trust me, the next one might just flip what you thought you knew upside down.